Howdy, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Okayest Trapper podcast. As always, we are brought to you by some amazing sponsors: Cryptic, Blokes Modern Men's Health, Mountain Tough Fitness, and Trapline Beard Oil. Do me a favor, go and leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're tuning in from, and use the promo codes in the show notes for some great discounts on these great brands. And also, be sure to check out my brand new book, The Trade Gap, which is now available on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. Now, today's guest is a native Montanan. She's a wife, a mother of 3, a hunter, artist, and most importantly for this podcast, a trapper. When she's not helping with kids' sports, 4-H, or hunter's ed, you can find her out in the mountains. Rachel Doble, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to chat. I mean, as always, social media has its downfalls, but there's a lot of great things where you get to see a lot of people who are always doing great things, especially in the trapping community. You are one of those people to me, and I got to reach out, and you were gracious enough to offer to come on and chat. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, every guest gets the same question out of the gates. So if you can think about reaching into like your recesses of your core memories, can you remember the first time you were ever exposed to trapping?
Yeah, for sure. This one is going to kind of be a story there because it was back when I was in elementary school, and there was a group that came into our classroom, and they were introducing wolves to us from Washington, and those wolves needed saving. They needed rescued. And some of what they were threatened by were trappers. And so my first recollection and introduction to trapping was a very negative concept. And I didn't
real quick, I mean, I just want to paint the picture. Like, this was an anti-trapping group coming to speak to your school.
It was a sponsor wolves because they're endangered type of group.
Interesting. And do you remember kind of like that lasting impression? Was it like, I mean, kids are impressionable. Were you like, oh my God, we need to save the wolves?
Oh, absolutely. I was really envious and kind of jealous of my friend who got to actually sponsor 2 wolves. And she would get a little postcard, and it would say what the wolves' names were and what they've been up to and how her donation had helped contribute to their success. And I remember like, oh my gosh, these wolves, they're under attack and we got to do something. And I wanted to be behind that actually before I was introduced to the reality and the proper wildlife management and the necessity that we now serve.
Well, I mean, that's a full circle story. So that's kind of cool in the first place. However, do you remember what they were preaching is not the right word, but what they were saying? Like, obviously trapping's bad, but we see a lot today. Like whenever I drive into Montana from Idaho, you get hit with the, anti-wolf trapping posters that have like the terribly, like clearly photoshopped wolves and footholds that look like they're suffering. Was it that same kind of a conversation around trapping that we were putting like, hey, like these leg holds are fatal or something like that is clearly false?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, they definitely put some fear into your little young mind right there at that moment, saying that, these wolves are endangered. There's trappers after them. They're going about it, the wrong way, and we have to save them. And it really, really, it moved me. I was ready to sponsor wolves.
Yeah. Now, did you grow up in like a hunting, trapping family where you went home that night, told mom and dad what had happened, and they kind of set you straight? Or did it take time before you were able to kind of start to come full circle and, like you said, get grounded in the realities of what it is, especially around wolves in Montana?
So I'm really embarrassed to actually have to admit this, but I was a borderline PETA activist kind of growing up because my dad and brothers and uncles, they all went out hunting, but I really wasn't introduced to it until later. And so I felt bad for the gophers that they shot, and I didn't realize that there was a use for the hunting. I didn't realize it was a necessity. So no, I didn't have that introduction to wildlife management and harvesting animals. It wasn't until I met my now husband, and he got me out of road hunting and out and really like exploring the mountains and wildlife. And then I started to really understand and appreciate it and dive deeper, which is how I ended up into the trapping world.
So in that time frame, like, how many years then from the time like you were almost PETA indoctrinated to meeting your current husband?
Let's see. At least 10 years.
Okay. So, I mean, a decade, right? So you
Yeah.
had a decade of like that stance. So when you met your husband, and like you said, like there's a huge delta between, and this is not a knock on anybody's style of hunting, but like road hunting and, kind of taking things the easy route versus like real backcountry, get out there, explore not just for animals, but the land, everything else. How long from the time you met him and started going out that I'll call it an indoctrination started to unspiral for you and you started to see things in a different light?
Oh, it happened pretty quick. The first time he asked me out, he asked if I wanted to go fishing. And I was like, yeah, sure. And he took me to a like backwoods mountain lake, and I loved it. And I just was starting to just crave the adventure. And one thing led to the next. It was going into archery season. He asked if I wanted to go along. I did. I didn't get to do any of the archery hunting, but I was there to support him and listen to the interactions in the mountains. And that's kind of where I started to decide, like, I want to be in this environment. I want to learn more. I want to surround myself with wildlife. I understood the challenges of pursuing big game. And that's kind of where I got led into the trapping world, because I realized that our ungulate population was in such distress from the wolves and the mismanagement. So I wanted to, like, how can I counter this? And at the same time, I have 3 kids in tow. So what can we do with 3 kids in tow to make it a learning environment and be out in the woods, and especially during the winter? Like, what are you going to do with 3 kids during the winter months? They don't want to be cooped up indoors. They don't want to be stuck in front of a television. So for me, I was like, okay, if we can't do the big game hunting, let's get into the trapping.
Well, I mean, awesome. And we don't own a TV and we get cooped up a lot. So my kids go on my trap line with me, but before getting there, like I don't want to miss out on this. Like you mentioned, you started going on archery hunts with your husband, obviously big game. And this is kind of the progression that I took, it sounds like, which is archery hunting and then seeing the impact on the ungulate population year over year. It took me like a few years before I was like, with my own eyes, saw the degradation of what was happening, of wolf kill, wolf kill, wolf kill. And then, my efforts got diverted towards, wolf trapping, wolf hunting. Was it like a season? Was it multiple seasons? Like, was it like getting educated from your husband to be like, yeah, you were going there. He's like, yeah, 6-10 years ago, there was X more number of ungulates and now we're facing it. Like, how fast was that progression to like just starting to get into the hunting with your husband and then really understanding the impact of some of these predators?
Sure. It was a pretty fast pace, because I remember where we originally started hunting, there was a lot of good game in there. And then within 2 years, the game was blowing out. And I remember seeing my first wolf, a gray wolf, and I was just blown away. And we were hunting the same animals, and they had clearly dominated. And so then we ended up relocating to a different part of northwestern Montana, where we are living now. And when we got here, there was a ton of game. There was different groups. You start naming the different bucks. You start focusing on what you want to target. And but then everything changed. The elk started to not just, they would stop communicating with each other. Their behavior was just erratic, and then literally we would see them running for their lives. And if you would watch the brush behind them, you could see what was happening, and they were getting surrounded. And that's when my focus and attention diverted to, like, I can't continue to pursue these big game animals that I love and I want to share with my kids for the rest of their lives, when they're being so annihilated in our area because we're all hunting them. And to see the wolves go through and the numbers aren't there like they used to be. The experiences aren't there like they used to be.
Yeah. And it is interesting, like when you go out, especially in archery season, and the vocalness changes. I remember being on an archery elk hunt in camp. Like we had a great day, just elk talking nonstop. Those great experiences you have, like one of those days you're like, yeah, didn't get an elk, but it was a great day. And then that night in camp, this was in the White Clouds, you just hear a wolf like sound off, and then another one. And the next 3 days, you could not get an elk to bugle.
Yeah.
Like prime rut and nothing.
And
silent.
why? Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know why though? You heard them. But getting into the trapping part, was your husband a trapper as well? Or is this all net new for both of you?
It was completely new for both of us. So we would we would stay up late at night, get the kids in bed, and have a little alone time. And he worked out of state most of the time. So, like, what can I do with the kids during the winter months? And he's like, well, let's watch some trapping videos. Maybe that's something you guys could do. And I was kind of reluctant. I'm like, I don't know if that's something that I can do without you
You have a
here and helping me.
PTSD to your elementary school experience where they talked about the horrors of trapping.
Yeah, exactly. And so we started watching Rich and Sandy Mellon,
Mhm.
and then Scott Mackner. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there. Then we started reading magazines for Fish and Game, which he'd been into long before I was. But so that's how we got started in the trapping. And then we have a lot of trappers in our area, and so he encouraged me to reach out to one of them and see if I can go for a ride along. And so that was really eye opening, and that really that baited me in. And then I went from one ride along to the next, and then I got all of my own gear, went to these trapping conventions, and
Well,
it
let's talk about
spiraled.
your first ride along. Because, like, usually that first question I ask, like, you are definitely a unique individual. And like where I ask, what's your first exposure to trapping? And it's essentially a PETA experience. Yeah, a lot of people talk about their first time on a trap line. So let's talk about that. Like, you don't have to say who it's with if you don't feel comfortable with it, but like, what was that first trap line experience? What were you targeting? Like, was it what you expected or fully different? And then maybe talk a little bit about the first time you came up on, an animal that you'd been targeting, even with the help of a trapper that you were with.
All right. Yeah, so I first started trapping with my mentor, Dan Helterline. And I went to his house one morning. It was in the middle of winter. And it was kind of awkward, because I was out of my elements. He was cooking, getting ready for the day ahead, and I had really no idea what to expect. And the first thing he asked me is like, "Why are you wanting to trap?" I'm like, "What brings you here?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I just explained to him how I just have wanted to learn more about it, and I had all of these negative connotations, and I wanted to have my own experiences. And so it was on his wolf line, and it
So you
was
went straight to the big leagues, so to speak.
right. Yeah, because I usually go, I have pretty high goals, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to take out wolves. I didn't want to get a bunch of muskrats or beaver trapping. I wanted to get the wolves and take care of the problem right away. And he's was the best wolf trapper in our area, and I was really appreciative that he was willing to take me under his wing and give me that experience, and along with my kids. So that was my first mentor. And I mean, everything that we trapped from that point on, I would call him up and show up at his fur shed, and he would show me the ropes and kind of get me started in the right direction. And same with my kids. But I think on that first ride along, oh, I do remember it. The roads in the mountains were treacherous. It was just one of those days where the roads were a sheet of ice with a little bit of water, just enough so it
Mhm.
was like on every possible corner. And I think he's pretty notorious for not being the best driver. But anyway, we were coming around a corner, and he was talking about the set that we were coming up on, and we ended up spinning around, and a tree went right through the front of his pickup and into the radiator. And we didn't have a great first start. I don't think we harvested any animals. It was just empty traps and a lot of struggling and remakes. And I think he was frustrated with all of the wax sand that he was using and the remakes. So it was kind of quiet and interesting. But I mean, I wanted to learn more and get out there, and just being in that environment and taking notes and learning little bits and pieces here and there, I wanted to do it again.
Well, as a wolf trapper, well, let me say a mediocre wolf trapper myself, like, I think everybody wishes for the best experience out of the gate where, you roll up on your first set that you're going out with somebody and there's a wolf in it. But I'm sure if you look back on it, I would imagine seeing the frustrations with the wax dirt. Obviously, getting a tree through your radiator is not fun either, but like, just understanding the grit and resilience of doing a long wolf line, especially in the backcountry where roads are treacherous. Like, I'm sure that was not exciting from a, hey, we harvested a wolf perspective, but like, oh, here's what I'm really getting into. Like, you didn't go in with rose colored glasses after a great
Exactly. Exactly. And it gave me a real appreciation and perspective on what I was getting into. And that's what I needed. I needed a real life experience to not have judgment on the trapping community and to really understand what their purpose and why they do what they do. And then it just grew from there because I mean they have such a wealth of knowledge and they see things so differently, and it's so important to and their skills that they utilize in everyday scenarios. I'm like, my kids and I can learn from this, and that's why I'm like, we have to have our own trap line.
And so from that first harrowing experience to the first time that you walked up on an animal in a trap, what was that timeline like?
I don't honestly remember the first one. There's been so many times, but I remember the very first wolf that I caught, but it was indirectly with Dan himself. But we'd set it together,
Mhm.
and he wasn't expecting it, I don't think. So, I mean, it's just like Christmas. Every time you roll up to a trap and you have something in your set, you're just exhilarated and you're anticipating what it is and how it's going to go. And so my heart was racing. I mean, I just was through the roof. I can't even describe it. It was so intense too, and I just wasn't sure. I didn't know really, like I was paying attention to the catch circle, and I mean, I was reading Dan to see what he wanted me to do, trying to be respectful. And
Now, were these on drags? Was it like earth? What was the
it was
setup?
a dirt hole, and it was a foothold.
Okay.
Hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. So then you get up there. At what point do you like recognize, hey, this is not a fox, a coyote, but in fact,
Oh, I was going wild. Like I knew right away by the size of it and the destruction. I was like, it was a wolf, and he was just as thrilled. So I mean, it was just a really high. And right before that, I think we'd seen a few bull elk too. So just taking in everything and having that experience, and then actually to have a wolf in your set and to have that moment come together was
you're
incredible.
pretty sure you might have even seen the bull elk stop and like whisper thank you, right? In that moment.
Right.
So that's amazing in and of itself. Like you jumped into the deep end on trapping. Like, was your husband around when this one happened, or was he out of state? Because I imagine you might have gotten either as quick to the phone as possible, or was he able to be there and kind of help you out in the first shed too afterwards?
No, he wasn't there, and he missed a lot. So a lot of the trapping experiences that we've had were mostly just the kids and I, and then getting to know some of the other mentors in our area. Another mentor right down the road that's great with kids is Josh Jurek,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually got our. We had a problematic fox in the neighborhood that was targeting our ducks out here, and so I think it was two winters ago. He had taken both my daughters out on the canine trap line, and I'm not the best canine trapper. I really struggle in that area. So he went through all of the canine theory, and they did sets all day with them, and they loved it. So my youngest came back and she's like, "Mom, I'm gonna go out there and catch that fox." I'm like, "Go for it, hon. I hope you do." And so her and the older daughter, Sage, she went out there with her, and they made a perfect little dirt hole set by her fence, and I didn't think much of it. So 3 days later, I'm doing a school lesson with Sawyer and Sage and Dylan. She's kind of bored. She's like, "Mom, I'm going to go out and check my trap line." I'm like, "All right, hon, you go ahead." And by that time, we had just a thin layer of snow. So she's getting on her coat and she's taking her dog and heading out the front door. And 3 minutes later, she comes back through, just bursting through the front door, screaming with excitement, "Mom, I caught the fox! I caught the fox!" And sure enough, she did. And so we had to go out there and dispatch him. And then I have a little video of her dragging it through the front yard on a sled, and it was adorable. A proud moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, my daughter's been with. So I have 3 kids, 4 be 3 next week, and a little over 1. So very young. But my 4-year-old is starting to really be out there with me quite a bit, and obviously she hasn't. And not at the point doing her own traps. We have those little 3D printed traps that she likes to set in the house, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm excited for when those days come. But man, to have that autonomy and not to completely steer into homeschooling and some of the benefits right away, but like you said, the ability to do your lessons and then go either set a trap or go with our friend down the road to learn a little bit more, and you could call that recess maybe, and
absolutely
come back and, reap the benefits of doing something not a lot of adults can do, and then be successful at it. Those are skills I'm sure your daughters will never look down on and are very lucky to have. So that's amazing. But, as we go down this path a little more, so you're wolves, like, what other critters, like you said, you're not the best canine trapper, and neither am I for that matter, but like, did you start to expand? Like, and if you did, was it like your kids wanting to kind of do like water trapping, or did you get into anything else, or have you really just stuck on the wolf side of the house?
No, we really dove into the water trapping, and that's really where I shine and do really well. Same with, I do really good with bobcat trapping. I love it, enjoy it a lot. But the water trapping, the kids get to be so more involved with it that it's just, they love it. They get to bring their friends along. It's more rewarding. They need that more instant gratification. My son loves processing the fur for whatever reason. It's like the worst work in my opinion, but he loves it. And they literally go from the water to the wall with their fur handling. So
That's amazing.
we trap everything from, we caught a badger out here in our field, skunks, raccoons, but beaver is the number one thing that we go after.
So when did you follow the same kind of process that you did with the wolf, starting out, like finding a mentor, going out and learning to set conibears, snares, whatever else you use, or footholds too for beavers on drowner sets? Like, how did that evolve?
So the water trapping we learned primarily from Scott Mackner, the 330 Maniac.
Oh yeah, he's been one of my favorite guests. I had him on a couple episodes ago, and he was, like many people, the best digital mentor you could ask for, especially in beaver trapping.
I actually want him to come out here to Montana and trap with me, because his environment and my environment are completely different. So I've had to really improvise after learning from him, because a typical H stand that they can just sink right into the ground over there doesn't work here. The first beaver we caught, well, it wasn't the first one, but it was like within the first 6. We use actually a logging chain to drown a beaver because the water was so deep. It was over a 40-foot deep area, and we set the foothold on a food cache, just hoping that it was going to climb up there. And I mean, front foot catch, and we needed that huge chain to just drag it down and hold it underwater. So yeah, just learning how to trap in different environments, to see Scott Mackner online and to apply it in our environment, not the same.
Yeah. But, like you said, it's interesting. Like, there's certain fundamentals you can take from great beaver trappers anywhere, but it would be great to get that level of expertise refined for like your specific scenarios.
So, Paul Ansick, right, from Mountain Man. So he's one of my other main primary like mentor trappers, because the very first time that I went to a fur handling clinic at Dan's fur shed, I had the 3 little kids with me, and Paul was there, and he has a son that's, I think, 21 or 22-ish. But I was Chance, yeah. And so I was so nervous to have 3 kids there with a bunch of stinky trappers, and so Paul can tell that I was just out of my element, and he swooped in and he's like hands-on with the kids, gave them their own little weasel foot, and just made the experience so fun for them, and it was really welcoming. And so then I ended up getting invited out to go with him on his trap line, and so I would make a set and do a video of it, and I would send it to him, and I'd be like, Paul, like, what am I doing here? What should I do differently? And so those fundamental things that you were talking about, those things that only trappers can really identify and pick up on, that I'm not going to see in a typical video, he was able to point out, like, okay, you need to consider that the ergonomics of a beaver, how it's going to approach your set, how far away is it going to be from that set. And so just turning the footholds to make it suitcase instead of push your beaver out of there. He would look at my sets and review them and critique them, and then put me on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, like that. We're very lucky in the age we live in, right? Like, as far as mentorship goes. So I'm going to ask this question. So this podcast is geared towards everybody, but also newer trappers, trying to demystify some of the stigma around trapping, and it is still a good old boys club, and it's sometimes hard to find a mentor. So like if you were talking to new trappers, be they male or female, what would be your suggestion for, finding mentorship?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think you just really have to get out into that community, go to the trapping conventions and be vulnerable to communicate with people and show your interest and show your support as well. Go buy their products that they have because they have beautiful merchandise and they need that support as well.
Yeah. And I guess I'll ask this too then. Like, I think a lot of people are intimidated. Like you said, you go up and a bunch of stinky trappers, and most people are like grizzled mountain men, despite of
Right.
where they're at. Have you had any negative interactions when you've gone and approached trappers? I know personally I have not, but I always like to ask this, especially for new trappers, to kind of help get them over that fear of reaching out and being open.
Um, no, I haven't had any negative experiences with any of the trappers that I've met.
So
No.
you hear that first, everybody. Rachel says go and talk to people. They're usually
Yeah.
nicer than they might even appear.
Well, I mean, honestly, the trapping community rallied around my family at the hardest, most worst
Yep.
events of our lives. And without their support, I mean, we couldn't have got through the hard events that we went through. So, I mean, it was the trapping community, and I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit later because I followed a lot of that as well, and thankfully it seems like things have kind of taken an uptick, which is an amazing thing. But
Praise Jesus.
yeah, amen to that. But before we get to that too, though, again, being geared towards new trappers, I always like to ask this or these two questions of guests. One, in your trapping career so far, can you remember the most egregious mistake you made on your trap line? And then, as a follow-on question, can you remember the biggest mistake you made in your fur shed?
Well, can I answer the second
Yeah.
question first?
Yeah.
Okay, because this one will kind of rip your heart out. I have a bobcat hanging up back here behind me, and I guess it's probably worth $1,000. And I didn't realize how nice it was, and I didn't put it up the best. And it could have been put up a lot better. And so at the last fur handling clinic that Jerk put on just down the road, Jim Weeks was there, and so he polished it up, and he was so impressed with this bobcat fur. And I didn't realize that I had such a nice pelt there, and I didn't do it the way it should have been done. And so he's like, if you would have done this the correct way, the proper way, you could have got a lot more money out of it. So that kind of stung.
But do you remember like what it was? So like with bobcats, I'm not the best bobcatter. I'm definitely not the best fur handler when it comes to bobcats, but like kind of getting that like 4-inch uniform belly, right? Like what was it that blew it out? Did you kind of have like a football shape to it, or what was the issue?
So I improvised with the frame that I used, and so it was too wide, and then it took away from the length, and then I didn't do the legs properly. Took too much off of the belly underneath, so I took away more than I should have.
Yeah, that is heartbreaking. But like I try to reiterate to everybody listening, like that is a part of learning to trap. Like there are going to be mistakes that are made. Like we always have to try to honor the animal in the best way possible, but you will never learn unless you do that. Now, some of them come at a bigger cost when you have a great pelt, right? And those hurt more than others, but I think it's par for the course, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. And
Now,
it's all just learning. I mean, the whole time it's trial and error from the water to the fur shed.
Yep. And now what about on the trap line? Do you have anything that sticks out?
I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you about this one.
Those are usually the best, just as a preface.
Oh goodness. So this was our first nuisance beaver project for the county road department. They had a beaver that was clogging a culvert, and it was winter time. And so I was all amped and ready to go set this culvert. And I knew that I had to be really conscientious that we would have dog walkers and the public really close by. And so we get there, and I'm scouting for the right locations. And like I said, we have really rocky terrain here, so we can't just stick something in and have it like set up a den hole full. I found the den hole. And so we had our youngest daughter with us. She was, I think, 7 or 8 years old at the time. But she was playing up on the hillside as I was in my waders and in the water, and my husband was up on the bank, and he was kind of helping me get everything situated. And so I'm standing in front of the den hole, and I'm going to put the 330 right in front of the hole. So I have him slide the branch through the springs, and as I'm trying to find the right spot to put it and place it, my daughter runs down from the hillside, and she jumps both feet right on top of that den. And like a torpedo, a beaver came flying out of that den hole and went literally between my legs, hit me with its tail, and I still had a hold of that branch with a 330 that was loaded and ready to fire. And so as that thing is swinging towards my head, I'm trying to matrix style miss, like getting hit with this dang 330, and I dip back far enough that my waders start to fill up with water. And I realized at that point, when my yoga pants started to get wet, that I was in trouble, and I darted up out of there. And I couldn't believe that. I mean, it was dangerous. Like, I had a beaver that hit me. I didn't realize that I should have been aware that there was a beaver inside that den hole, but I didn't think that it was going to come flying out at me and hit me with its tail. And it was impressive.
I mean, yes, dangerous, but also you probably came this close to having the best beaver catch in history. Like, if you had just had that unlatched right there when your daughter jumped on it, and if that beaver had slammed through that 330 while you were still holding it by the string, that would have been the coolest thing that's ever happened on Earth.
Right. It would have been. So close.
So close. But it's still a good story. And like, it does go to show, just, you never know. Always be ready. And kids, this is maybe a good segue into kids on the trap line. They bring a whole other element. So like, as a mom of 3, I'm curious, like, how you balance getting them out regularly on the trap line and, corralling and keeping them entertained. Because like you said, it's better than sitting in front of the TV. But like, I've noticed with my daughter in the winter going out and setting beaver traps, like, I'll get her in the sled, a little snowshoe, and make a set, snowshoe. And man, like, she can get pretty bored pretty quick. I mean, like, she'll entertain herself with stuff, but like, then the questions start rolling. It's like, can we go back to the truck? Can we do this? And, I'm trying to be meticulous and, do my thing. So how do you handle that as a mom of 3 who, got into this for your kids, essentially?
Yeah, well, that is a challenge. And that's what it comes down to, is like, are you willing to go through it's like an endurance test. Can you get your kids corralled and on track to go out into the mountains and go check your trap line? Because it gets pretty intense. And I mean, raising kids, that's the feral part, not so much the trapping.
Yeah.
But really what it comes down to is getting them involved and giving them responsibilities, and making sure that they're included, because they're eager to learn. So what we've started to do is, if we're targeting coyotes or bobcats or whatever, we give the kids an opportunity to kind of create their own set and decide what they would use, and explain why they would do it. Like, do you want to use a foothold here? Like, what approach, how would you use your skills and apply them in this period or point? And so when they get to actually apply their own skills and technique and see if they're successful, they're into it.
That's 100% true. And yeah, I think also having snacks on hand helps too.
Always.
Yeah, snacks, and then maybe you can use them in bait. But like, how do you handle, like, I've talked to some people. I think there also has to be like a mental expectation of what your trapping experience is going to be with kids versus without. Because like, I can go out in the mountains and I can set a long line, be meticulous, do all the scent control stuff that I'd like to do. But kids, like, they're going to touch stuff. They're going to eat stuff and touch stuff. Like, is it for you just like, this is trapping with kids and you have your mental expectation versus not? Or do you have some sort of blend of the two and you just, have a methodology where it doesn't matter whether you're with kids or without?
Well, we try to balance it, but it is really challenging, especially when you're out there. When we were focusing just on wolves, man, they didn't enjoy it. They loved the idea of it and being out there and the adventures and the snowshoeing and rebaiting. But coming up to empty set after empty set, that is the hard part for kids. They're so used to having instant gratification in today's world that they're expecting the same thing on the trap line, and that's not reality. So that's why we try to balance it with the water trapping and the other things that they do get more thrill out of.
Yeah, I think that balance is key. Speaking of family, speaking of trapping community, I'll ask the question because you brought it up earlier, but like, yeah, I think was it COVID or like a couple years ago where you guys had a big issue familially and the trapping community did kind of rally around you guys. If you're okay sharing a little bit more about that, I'd love to talk about that because I think one of the stigmas is like the trapping community is full of evil people who trap animals. But again, my experience has been, your experience seems like it's been that they're some of the most genuine, kindest people who would literally give the shirt off their backs. And that's what I'd love for the community larger to see what we're all about.
Yeah, so it wasn't during I think I know what you're talking about. You're referring to my husband and his
Mhm.
near-death experience. He ended up with um, being in a hospital from COVID and pneumonia. Um, but no, it was actually before then. My daughter, we had a really bad hunting accident.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the day before her 10th birthday and a week before the youth apprentice hunt. And so she actually was shot through the torso in a really bad hunting accident. And so when you have something like that, that can really derail your whole life, really, your whole family. We had to face, like, because we were just getting involved in trapping, we were just learning about it. We were like, I'd taken the kids over to the Bear Paw Youth Trappers Camp for the first time in 2018, and so they were thrilled about the upcoming season and being out in the mountains like we are accustomed to. That's just our family. We love to be out in the mountains and pursuing animals. So this was going to be her first hunt, and we had a really bad hunting accident where she was shot. A bullet came. It was a 22 mag that shot through the back door of our pickup, and it went through her body transversely. Um, and I mean, it was so completely traumatic. But long story short, when we came out of that, the trapping community rallied behind us. They raised money for us. They showed up for us. I mean, I was receiving so many prayers and words of encouragement and similar scenarios of accidents happening, and like just they uplifted our family, and they kept us going. And so it was through that experience that we bonded with so many great people. And then to continue that kind of lifestyle where other families were looking down on us because we weren't going to stop doing what we loved. It was 17 days after she had been shot, she went out and harvested her first deer, and it was single digit weather, and she was like, no, this was my goal and I'm still going to go get it. And she still had a bullet inside of her, and she was like, I'm not going to let this slow me down.
That's
And some
awesome.
people thought we were horrible parents for letting her go do that, but that was her goal. And then we had the trapping community that was like, good for her, like keep her on that trap line, get her out there. And so we were just getting started with our own trap line, and so we had to decide, like, are we going to continue with this trap line? Because where that accident happened, we had to drive by it every single time we checked traps, and that was really hard for our whole family because my husband wasn't there at the time. It was just the kids and I, but we had to overcome that, and we did. And just that constant exposure and getting it back out there, and reminding us, like, we love this and this is why we do this. And we bonded over it, and we had the support from everybody behind us.
As a parent of kids, like, your worldview changes when you have kids. Everybody who has them knows that. I got started much later in life with having kids, but like that makes my hair raise just hearing that story. Cause I mean, that was kind of before I got into trapping. So, my apologies. I did not know all of that at the time, but like, beautiful story though, too, at the same time with, I think we lose a lot in today's society of something bad happens, close off, or
Right.
don't readdress it. Like, the fact you had built resilience in your daughter going into the accident, whether she knew that or not, like, and she had a goal and she still pursued it. And then, you said 17 or so many days later, she was out there and harvested her first deer. Like, that's a beauty. Like, that's the way that I think Americans should be focused on rehabilitation and thinking about trauma in a different way. And like, not easy. I can't imagine, like, I would probably be breaking down in tears every time we drove past that spot. But then for you to be the example too, to do that, to get out to your trap line and bring your kids along and build that resilience together instead of in a vacuum or with a bottle or what a lot of people would be doing. And like, that's a true example of growth, for your kids. So that's amazing is what I'm trying to get at.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember the moment at the hospital where I spoke with my husband and I was like, she's supposed to go out and hunt her first deer this next week. Like, what happens when we leave this hospital? Like, who are we after this? And we had that talk with her even, and she's really mature for her age, and she was determined, like, no, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to go after. And I mean, that experience really brought our family closer together and is heart-wrenching and challenging it as it is to remember and go through. And I mean, it brought our family so much more. Like, we're close, we have a relationship with God, and we have a community around us that bond's not going to get broken.
Yeah, I mean, you never wish for something like that to be the driver for faith and community, but oftentimes it is. And like,
right,
it's an amazing story.
I really think that, I mean, you have to have purpose in the pain and make it beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, we had to choose. You could be in the darkness and live in that, or you can be out in the light about it. And so we had to make that choice. And I'm really proud of my kids because they don't let it hold them back. They don't even think about it. Right now they're up shooting guns. They're doing 4-H trap right now. So they're living life and they're not slowing down and they're pursuing their dreams. And the community that rallied around us when we were going through our hardest times, they're still there cheering them on. So how beautiful is that?
And setting them up for a lifetime of being ahead of others, frankly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's I could pontificate that the outdoor community, I mean, whether it's hunting, trapping, like, there's bad eggs in every basket for sure, but largely, like, resilient people who go do hard things, have respect for, things God gives us, animals, etc., do have a better time in dealing with trauma. One of my closest friends, a hunting partner, we're going on that early season deer hunt in a week or two. He's coming out there with me. They went through child loss, right? They had lost their daughter, Lucy, and, traumatic. However, like, I do think there is something in individuals who are connected with nature in the way that hunters and trappers are, that maybe give an edge in dealing with some of these things that oftentimes ruin people. And, it's a guess, but I think just that connectedness to God through nature, the connectedness through there's something bigger here. And you see it all the time. Like, being out in nature always makes you feel small and realize how finite our lives really are. But I think there's something to that.
I couldn't agree more. I know for my own experience, man, when I get out in the mountains, I am definitely more connected to God, and I'm so much more appreciative, and it just recalibrates me and gets me back on track and helps me come back into the everyday world that I live in and be okay. And like, I know that those mountains are there. I'm begging to go back.
And, being such a large part of your family's growth, trapping specifically, how do we as a trapping community, like, come together to help ensure that trapping is there for, my kids are younger than yours, my kids, your kids' kids. Like, how do we do that in such a divisive world that we're in?
Well, I've been taking a lot of younger kids on our trap line. We have a little guy down the road that he loves going with us, and he asks every time he gets a chance, like, can I come along? And so we've done that a few times. Then he comes back to our house. He does the fur handling, and he's eager to do it himself when he gets bigger. And then I've done a few fur handling clinics for the 4-H kids in our area, and just being involved and sharing our experiences and the fun merchandise that is available from the fur community as well. Just letting people know that it's okay to wear fur, be proud of it, and realize that this is a renewable resource and it was hard earned, and have respect and appreciation for it, because not everybody can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting just in pop culture today. I had on a few episodes ago a gal named Nora Lacoste who's running for Miss Universe Canada. And she's pro fur, right? And like her, yeah, and her stance is, all against like fast fashion and faux fur, and like educating people on the negatives of it. Like, fur itself, true fur is sustainable, green, blah, blah, blah. It's a legacy item that you can pass down from generation to generation. And God forbid you get tired of it, you throw it in a landfill, it's going to disintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like fast fashion and stuff from China that's all synthetically made with chemicals is not, right? You can't throw that into a landfill, or you can, but it's not going to disintegrate. And I think that I'm seeing it too. Like there was something with Sydney Sweeney wearing real fur, the ex-Disney star, I think. But anyways, she was doing that. So I don't know if that's an indication of a tide turning towards more, sustainable stuff and getting away from the fast fashion. But I think that's another good point that, hopefully we can continue to change the opinions of people that have been, pushed to say fur is bad, when in reality it's not.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my most prized possession and favorite gift is fur mucklucks. That the fur was for beaver and muskrat that I caught myself, and my husband gave it to one of my friends, and some elk hide, and I wear them every day during the winter.
Yeah. And they're
trade
warm.
For anything. Oh yeah.
Warm, waterproof, like all the things that you would need some synthetic chemical to make, like on your hunting boots.
They're
you can do with fur.
So what I don't think most people realize about fur is that it's kind of self-regulating. When I put my feet into my mucklucks, they don't get too hot. You would think that they would get way too hot because they're elk hide, beaver, and muskrat.
Mm.
No, they're so comfortable, and they don't overheat me. I don't get sweaty. They're just right all the time.
Yeah. And then when it gets cold, they keep you warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. So, okay, if you looked into your crystal ball, what do you see as the future of trapping?
Well, honestly, I think that it's pretty bright. I think people are getting more supportive of it. I think more people are getting willing to learn and to see beyond the propaganda and the lies that we're getting pushed down our throats all the time. Like you said, the billboards that people are seeing, I think people are getting more savvy to that they need to question those things, and the community just being out more public about it, saying this is the reality of it. Just the communication and being willing to share experiences with other people who aren't sure. I see. I think it's bright.
That's good. I mean, we don't always get the most optimistic outlook. So I love when we get those. And I agree with you. I think platforms like this, where we can talk to people like in a normal way, it's not like, hey, how'd you do that dirt hole set? But like get to know the whole person that goes behind trapping. And it's just like, a lot of people are probably like you, who grew up with some level of PETA indoctrination. And then, if you have the gumption to go and get experiences yourself and put yourself out there, you could have gone out there on a trap line and realize, hey, this isn't for me. Maybe it's not terrible, but it's not for me. But right. I think a lot more people, if we could get in that mindset of experience over judgment, and at least going and trying it. And again, don't expect to be swayed, but like maybe you will, like you were. And I think those are things that collectively as a nation, we really need to get in the mode of doing.
I think a lot of the issue with our society now is that they're just not aware that it's needed. It's a necessity. I remember Rich and Sandy Mellon saying that we are the buffer between wildlife and society, and that's a real thing. I mean, without trappers, we're going to have constant conflict, and it needs to be respected and appreciated. I mean, our whole country, especially Montana, was founded on the fur trade business, and to disregard it and not honor it, and it's a shame, and it needs to be highlighted and honored instead of disregarded.
Yeah, I'm going to say this out loud. I have like a budding idea for a novel, which is going to be called The First and Last Millionaire. because the first millionaire in the U.S. was John Jacob Astor on beaver fur. And, if we were to go in a decline as a society, I could see a world where our last millionaire would be a beaver trapper too. Who knows?
I like where you're going with it. I want to share these with you because I'm really proud of them.
Oh, yes, please do. Oh, those are beautiful. For those who are only listening audio, we're looking at her mucklucks with the elk hide and muskrat and beaver.
Custom made, beautiful beadwork up here.
Who made those, if you don't mind me asking?
Her name's Leanne Brooks, L&B Leathers. She did all of this tooling.
Ooh, that is
gorgeous work.
Awesome. Okay, so we're coming up on an hour. I always end with the two same questions, so it'll be a little bit of a lightning round. So, kind of growing up in this world, and especially after you met your husband, what has been the wildest experience you've ever had in the woods? And I don't know if you can top anything other than that beaver to the legs, but if you can, awesome. Otherwise, we can use that one.
No, I think the otter or the beaver between my legs was the best thing.
Yeah, I mean, normally we talk about stories throughout the podcast, and someone will pull something cooler out of the hat. But I think you set the bar pretty high with that one.
It was a wild experience. I mean, I also have a beaver that I'm really proud of that I caught. It was 70.5 pounds. It was only my 12th beaver that I've ever caught, and that thing was huge.
Wow.
Caught it in a foothold, and I thought that it had drowned because the setup was gone, but it had really gotten wound up and tangled in the tree. And so I got in the water and started pulling on that chain, and it was mad. Well, my gun that I had to dispatch it was, a mile away. So we had to go back to the rig, get the gun to dispatch it, and that thing ended up being huge.
Yeah, no, for those who don't know or haven't beaver trapped, live beavers are some of the meanest things you can ever have, and they have steel for teeth that can easily sever a femoral artery if they were angry enough. And a 70-pound beaver is a ginormous beaver. I think the largest I've caught up near me is about 55 pounds, and that's a big animal.
Oh, she was so mad. She was pulling back on me, hitting the water with her tail, and I have never moved so fast in my life.
I would be too. I'd be like running as fast. That would be a scary time to flood your waders.
Yeah.
I might have flooded my waders, but it wouldn't have been with the water that was
exactly
outside.
Exactly.
Okay, so I always end on a hypothetical question. So, would you rather skin 50 beavers in one day or take 3 kids grocery shopping on a Saturday afternoon?
I'm going to do the beaver every day. Every day of the week. I would rather do that than go grocery shopping with kids.
Yeah, no, I figured I might know what that answer is, but Rachel, I mean, I want to thank you, for being willing and talking. I think this is great for the trapping community. You're a great representative of trapping and all the good that goes with it. So I appreciate that. You always put good light out there and good content that is tasteful and very well put together. So appreciate that. And if there's anything else, where can people find you, whether that's on social media or anything else that you'd like to plug? And then we can wrap it up.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really enjoy being out and trapping with my kids, and I do love sharing it with everybody else. So I would really encourage anybody interested to reach out to somebody that in your area that traps, and ask those questions and see if you can go for a ride along. I know I'm willing to take people, so get out there and experience it. And a personal plug for me is I do sell real estate. I work for Clearwater, Montana Properties right here in Plains, Montana. I service all of Northwest Montana, and I own my own dirt work excavation company. That's how I brought my husband home from Sitka, Alaska. So Rugged Country Enterprises, if you need a road built or pioneered, site prep, we got your back covered there.
So it sounds like if you really want to get into trapping and you want to go be neighbors with Rachel and go out on her trap line with her, get a house from her or a plot of land. They can get it leveled for you. You can build your dream home, and you can become a trapper.
Yeah, I know where the best property is around here. Let me hook you up.
Perfect. All right, Rachel, thank you so much. And for everybody listening, we'll catch you on another episode of the Okayest Trapper podcast.
Thank you.